The Boy from the Lake. Everything begins at Camp Crystal Lake, a quiet place that hid an old secret. Years earlier in 1957, a boy named Jason Voorhees, born with deformities and bullied constantly, drowned in the lake while the counselors were distracted. His body was never found. In 1980, Pamela Voorhees, the boy's mother, massacred the camp counselors to avenge her son's death.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
But at the last moment, Alice Hardy, the only survivor, manages to decapitate the killer with her own axe. Everything seems to be over. Alice is alone in the boat, floating in the silence, until... something suddenly jumps out of the dark water. It's Jason Voorhees as a child. But he isn't a normal child. His head is completely asymmetrical and deformed. The skin is wrinkled and swollen from the water, and his mouth is crooked. His small hands grab Alice desperately, pulling her into the depths. And then she wakes up. It was just a nightmare, or was it? This terrifying image is what starts everything. Jason Voorhees' deformed face is presented to the world for the first time, not as an adult killer, but as a monstrous child who never rested. The Sackman. 5 years have passed since the Crystal Lake Massacre. Jason Voorhees is now a grown man and wears a burlap sack over his face, with a single hole for his right eye. The rest of his body is covered with a torn plaid shirt and worn-out overalls, stained with mud and dried blood. A new group of counselors arrives at a nearby camp known as Packanack Lodge, and Jason doesn't waste any time. He attacks with whatever he finds: axes, spears, hammers, machetes, even barbed wire. In the end, Jason faces Ginny Field, the child psychology counselor. She discovers a makeshift altar where he keeps the mummified head of Pamela, his mother. In that moment, everything makes sense. Jason lives for his mother, still hears her voice echoing in his mind. Ginny uses that against him and puts on Pamela's bloody sweater.
Jason, Mother is talking to you!
Jason, Mother is talking to you.
For a moment, the monster hesitates, but the trick doesn't last. When Ginny is forced to reveal the ruse, the fight explodes. Jason is struck with his own machete, and Ginny and Paul escape desperately, thinking they finally stopped him. But then, in the last scene, Jason crashes through the window. And for the first time, we see the face of the man behind the sack. The face is bumpy, deformed with irregular lumps. His red hair is long and uneven, growing in strange clumps. The left eye droops lower than the right, giving him a distorted expression. It's a direct evolution of the original Lake Boy concept, now grown into an adult. The mask is born. Once again, the sun rises over Crystal Lake. In the peaceful scenery, we discover that Jason Voorhees survived. He staggers around, still hurt from the previous night. A new group of young people arrives at a cabin near the lake. They want a quiet weekend away from the city with friends, but Jason is there, watching from the shadows. However, something has changed in him. Jason now seems to have shaved his head completely. The beard is gone, his face is more exposed, more terrifying than ever. His teeth are broken, and the drooping eye has worsened, almost completely shut, giving him an even more disturbing appearance. He attacks when no one expects it. What used to be an impulsive killer now becomes a methodical hunter, moving with deadly precision. During one of the chases, Jason enters the barn and finds hockey gear left behind by Shelly, one of the characters who used the mask to prank his friends. In that moment, one of the most recognizable looks in horror movie history is born. In the final battle, he faces Chris Higgins, a girl who, ironically, had already encountered Jason years before when she was younger, an old trauma she tried to bury. In a last act of survival, Chris manages to slam an axe right into Jason's head. He staggers and falls to his knees, apparently lifeless. And that's how the third movie ends. But here's an interesting detail about this film. There was a second makeup design for Jason, used in an alternate ending that was filmed but scrapped. In that version, Jason's face looked more pig-like, grotesque, and animalistic. It was an old mold the effects team decided to reuse. The director hated how it turned out and threw it out entirely. And honestly, that was a good decision. The final version, the one we see when Jason charges at Chris with his exposed and deformed face, is way more terrifying. The Face of Vengeance. The story picks up exactly where the previous movie left off. The police arrive at the barn and Jason's body, apparently dead, is taken to the morgue. The coroner jokes around while examining the body and a nurse watches an aerobics video. But as always, Jason isn't really dead. He wakes up, kills the coroner and the nurse, and escapes from the hospital. And so, the legend of Crystal Lake begins again. This time, the setting is a remote country house near the lake, rented by a group of teenagers looking for fun. And right next door lives the Jarvis family, the widowed mother, teenage Trish, and young Tommy, a kid obsessed with special effects and horror movies. As the teens party with no idea of the danger, Jason approaches quietly through the woods. One by one, they fall. Jason looks visibly more worn down, dirtier, heavier, with rotting, torn clothing. The kills are more violent, heavier, and more creative than ever. In the climax, Jason invades the Jarvis house and Trish tries to protect her brother, but nothing seems enough to stop the killer. That's when Tommy appears at the top of the stairs with makeup and shaved hair to look like Jason as a child. For a moment, Jason completely hesitates, and in that brief moment of vulnerability, Trish attacks from behind. Jason's mask falls to the ground, and what we see is Jason Voorhees' most terrifying face so far. He regains his rage and goes after the girl again, so Tommy grabs a machete and strikes Jason, who falls to the floor with the blade in his eye. There are a few seconds of relief until Tommy realizes Jason is still alive. That's when he finishes the job, striking Jason repeatedly with a fury that doesn't seem natural in a child. In this movie, legendary special effects artist Tom Savini decided to design Jason's face inspired by the original Lake Boy, imagining how that deformed child would have grown after decades living in the woods. And the result is incredible. That face is completely twisted, one side more developed than the other. The features are strong and incredibly realistic, almost like a real person with severe deformities. The look is grotesque yet deeply human, which makes it even more disturbing. It's many people's favorite version of Jason, and without a doubt, one of the scariest in the franchise. The Zombie. Yeah, we're going to skip Friday the 13th Part 5, because we don't see Jason's face in that movie. It was just an imposter. So let's talk about the 6th film. Tommy Jarvis returned to Crystal Lake, but not seeking peace. He came obsessed, determined to destroy Jason Voorhees' body once and for all. With his friend Alan Hawes, Tommy finally opens the rotting coffin. He sees Jason there, motionless, buried for years. But seeing him isn't enough for Tommy. He takes a metal rod and jabs it into Jason's chest to finish him off for good. But fate has other plans. A violent storm suddenly begins. Lightning strikes the metal rod stuck in Jason's body, and he comes back to life. Alan tries to attack him, but Jason turns around and kills him with his bare hand. Tommy runs from the cemetery in panic, but the evil is already loose again. Jason Voorhees has been resurrected, and this time he's truly immortal. Jason's look changes completely in this film. Now he's a threatening zombie. We see his face quickly at the beginning when he wakes up, and that's enough to understand what happened. The skin is grayish, almost colorless, like a corpse buried for years. The appearance is completely cadaverous, with stiff, dried flesh. There's nothing human left. This is Jason brought back from the dead for the first time, a literal walking corpse, and from here on he's no longer just a deformed killer. He's something that defies the laws of nature. Meanwhile, the former Crystal Lake has officially been renamed Camp Forest Green, a desperate attempt to erase the past and attract tourists again. But changing the name doesn't change fate. A new group of excited counselors and kids arrive for another summer of outdoor activities. Jason walks through the woods wearing the same clothes as before, now more torn and covered in mud and blood. The deaths pile up with renewed brutality. Tommy, consumed with guilt for resurrecting the monster, decides to finish what he started. He studies old newspapers, the stories of the lake, trying to find a way to destroy something that can't die. Then he realizes Jason drowned in the lake in 1957. The water that killed him once may be the only thing capable of trapping him again. In the final battle, during a furious storm on the lake, Tommy lures Jason onto a boat. He manages to wrap a heavy chain around Jason's neck and tie the other end to a huge rock. With one last effort, he pushes the killer off the boat and Jason sinks. The living corpse. Years after the events of Jason Lives, a girl named Tina Shepard arrives at Crystal Lake with her parents. But Tina is different from other kids. She carries a strange gift inside her, and a curse she never asked for. During a violent argument between her parents, Tina runs to the pier. Her father follows her, trying to calm her, but she's panicked, out of control, furious. And then the worst happens.
Hey, you! I wish you were dead! I wish you were dead!
Without thinking, the girl wishes her father would die. The pier collapses and her father falls into the lake, drowning right in front of her eyes. Tina didn't use her hands. She used her mind. Years later, now a teenager, she returns to Crystal Lake with her mother and Dr. Cruz, a psychiatrist studying her telekinetic powers. He promises to help her control the gift and overcome the guilt that has consumed her since childhood. In a moment of emotional despair at the lake's edge, Tina closes her eyes and begs in her mind.
I'm sorry, Daddy. I wish I could bring you back.
The chains holding Jason begin to shake, break apart, and what rises from the dark water isn't her father. It's something far worse. And this is one of the best faces in the entire franchise. After so long underwater at the bottom of Crystal Lake, Jason is rotting. His face appears completely destroyed by decomposition. The flesh is rotten, falling apart in chunks. His teeth are fully exposed with the jaw almost showing. Most of the tissue on his face was destroyed by water and time. He has only one functioning eye, the other simply fell out, melted, rotted, something like that, leaving only a dark, empty socket. The nose is almost non-existent, reduced to an uneven hole in the center of the face. This is my second favorite Jason look because he truly looks like a living corpse. There's nothing human left in him. His body is in advanced decomposition, his clothes completely torn, held together only by rotten leather straps. His spine is exposed, the mask cracked in half, partially revealing the deformed skull underneath. This is no longer the Jason from the early movies. This is the ultimate undead Jason. Meanwhile, a new group of teenagers gathers at a nearby cabin for a surprise party. Jason wastes no time and kills again. Each kill is a brutal reminder of what he has become, an unstoppable machine of destruction. But the real showdown is still coming. When Jason finally invades the house, Tina reacts instinctively. For the first time in the entire franchise, someone fights him as an equal. Tina hits him with telekinesis. Floorboards rip upward and strike him. Couches fly at him. Flames explode around him. Each attack slows him for seconds but doesn't stop him. In the climax, with Jason about to kill her, Tina closes her eyes and mentally begs her dead father one last time. Suddenly, the water begins to bubble and her father leaps out of it. He grabs Jason from behind, wraps a chain around his neck, and drags him back into the lake. The controversial face. The evil that sleeps in the depths of Crystal Lake doesn't stay quiet for long. During a storm, an anchor drags an underwater power cable. Lightning hits the wire and the electric current travels through the water, striking Jason's chained body directly. Then he comes back to life once again. Jason emerges from the water and massacres a couple on a nearby boat. At sunrise, he quietly boards a school cruise headed to New York. For the first time, Jason leaves Crystal Lake behind. On the ship, Jason hunts. One by one, the teens disappear. When the few survivors finally reach Manhattan, Jason comes ashore in the city. He appears on the streets of New York visibly transformed, with a body swollen and darkened by decomposition. A cracked, yellowed mask fused to his rotting face. He walks through the streets, crashes into the subway, moves through dark alleys. In a showdown with a gang, Jason slowly removes his mask.
Yo, man, it's cool. It's cool, man. It's cool.
And that's when we get to the most controversial Jason in the whole franchise. The Jason Takes Manhattan version is just weird. The final showdown happens in the sewers of Manhattan. The survivors run desperately through the dark tunnels. Cornered Rennie, one of the last survivors, finds a drum of toxic waste. In desperation, she opens the container and throws the corrosive liquid right into Jason's face. And for the first time in the entire franchise, he screams. His body starts to decompose under the acid. He still tries to finish his revenge, but a surge of waste sweeps over him. His face looks like a piece of fruit left in the sun for days. Shriveled, smooth, completely strange. The texture doesn't look like rotting flesh, it looks like badly painted rubber. There are no details, no depth, nothing that resembles the threatening corpse from the earlier movies. It is, without a doubt, one of the worst visual versions of Jason Voorhees. The Possessed. FBI finally discovers Jason's whereabouts. That night, the plan seemed simple. Lure the monster into a trap, surround him, and finish him once and for all. And then he shows up. The hockey mask is so deteriorated it looks like part of his flesh, cracked and stuck to his rotting face. Jason moves forward without rushing, as if nothing could stop him. The agents open fire. Explosions, gunshots, machine guns. He keeps walking until his body completely explodes. Jason Voorhees is blown to pieces. The FBI celebrates, believing the terror is finally over. But they have no idea what's about to happen. In the morgue, the coroner examines the charred remains and finds something impossible. The heart. It's still beating stronger and stronger, almost calling to him. Taken over by an inexplicable urge, the coroner eats the heart. From that moment on, Jason Voorhees no longer exists as a physical body. He becomes something much worse, a parasitic spirit that jumps from host to host. To be honest, in this movie, we barely see the real Jason. Most of the time, we only see the possessed bodies, not the original monster. But in the few moments Jason appears, the look is grotesque. The head is huge, swollen, and deformed. The mask is completely merged with the flesh, fused to the skull like it actually grew there. The final showdown happens in the old abandoned Voorhees family house, where everything began decades earlier. Jessica Kimball, his niece, faces her monstrous uncle armed with a mystical dagger, the only weapon capable of destroying him for good. When the enchanted blade finally pierces Jason's heart, something supernatural happens. He is dragged downward. The earth closes over him with a final thunderous crash. Jason Voorhees has finally been taken to where he always belonged, but only for a short time. future Jason. Decades have gone by since the bloody Crystal Lake massacres. Scientists watch him through bulletproof glass. They tried everything to destroy him, but nothing worked. So they made the only decision left: keep him imprisoned forever, sealed in ice. But during a desperate attempt to transfer him to another, safer facility, Jason wakes up. In a matter of minutes, he brutally attacks anyone in his way. But before he can fully escape, one of the scientists, Rowan, causes a massive liquid nitrogen leak. The freezing gas floods the room instantly. Jason moves toward her with the machete raised, but his body is consumed by ice in seconds, turning him into a frozen statue. Rowan is also frozen in the process, sacrificing herself to trap the monster. The place is sealed and abandoned. Decades turn into centuries. Earth eventually becomes uninhabitable, poisoned and destroyed, and humanity moves to the stars. In the year 2455, a group of students on a space research mission explores the devastated Earth. They discover the old facility buried under rubble and find 2 bodies perfectly preserved in ice. Fascinated by the historic discovery, they bring both aboard the spaceship Grendel for scientific study. The ship's doctors manage to revive Rowan using advanced technology, but they shouldn't have done the same with Jason. The ship's systems automatically defrost his body. The cracked, burned skin slowly starts to rebuild itself. And then he opens his eyes. In Jason X, we only get a glimpse of Jason's face before everything changes. He looks similar to the previous version, deformed, corpse-like, with little hair growing. The skin is damaged by time and extreme freezing, and that's the last human face he has before the futuristic upgrade. Within minutes, the confident crew quickly finds out that Jason Voorhees simply doesn't die. The ship is full of advanced tech, trained soldiers, and cutting-edge weapons, but absolutely none of that matters when Jason starts his hunt. The crew fights desperately to stop him, using every weapon they have until they finally bring him down. To make sure he never comes back, the survivors leave his body where it fell, convinced the nightmare is finally over. But they forget one important detail. They're not in an ordinary time. The ship's labs are equipped with advanced medical technology, including nano-repair robots, tiny devices created to fix human tissue. The protocol is automatic. When they detect death and massive tissue damage, the nanobots activate. Their goal is to heal, rebuild, restore what was lost. But with Jason Voorhees, this becomes a fatal mistake. The nanobots systematically replace the rotted flesh with advanced metal alloys. The hockey mask is rebuilt and fused to his skull in a metallic version. Jason is reborn in front of them, no longer as a rotting zombie, but as a machine of absolute, unstoppable destruction. Uber Jason. It's an incredible look, futuristic and menacing. We don't see his face, but the design definitely deserves a mention here. The final duel. Before Jason X, we saw him go to hell, but while he disappears from the world of the living, another killer is facing a very different problem. In the dream realm, where fear is power, Freddy Krueger is getting weaker. Springwood doesn't say his name anymore, doesn't fear his claws, doesn't remember his legend, and without fear, he has no power at all. Freddy desperately needs terror to return to the streets, and that's when he finds the perfect solution: Jason Voorhees. Freddy invades the monster's sleeping mind and disguises himself as the only person Jason ever loved.
Jason, my special boy.
Jason wakes up and appears more imposing than ever. The hockey mask is now bigger, yellowed with age, covered in cracks. The exposed skin is ashy and burned, like it still carries the marks of hell. Freddy thought he could use Jason as a simple tool of fear, but what he brought back from the depths can't be controlled by anyone. In the quiet town of Springwood, teens start dying again, but the deaths aren't happening in dreams, they're brutally real, and everyone immediately believes Freddy Krueger has returned. Freddy's plan works perfectly, but there's one problem he didn't see coming. Jason doesn't stop killing. He massacres everyone he finds. The Dream Demon finally realizes he didn't bring back an obedient ally. He unleashed an uncontrollable enemy. A showdown between the two monsters becomes inevitable. When Freddy finally tries to attack Jason inside his own nightmares, expecting to dominate him in his territory, he discovers something impossible. Jason doesn't feel fear. Freddy tries to provoke him, mocking his mother's death, showing distorted visions of his traumatic drowning. And Freddy's controlled nightmare instantly turns into a brutal war zone. The epic battle crosses both worlds, from the twisted dreamscape to the real Crystal Lake. When the mask is finally ripped off during the fight, we see Jason as a child.
Oh, how sweet. You ugly little shit. Now there's a face.
In the real world, the fight continues. Freddy seems to have the upper hand with his agility and tricks, but Jason doesn't die. No matter how many times he's attacked, he keeps getting back up. In a final explosive clash, Freddy is brutally struck by Jason's machete. Both fall into the dark waters in a massive explosion. Silence finally returns. The survivors watch from the shore, exhausted and wounded. And then, the next day, we slowly see a figure emerging from the murky water. It's Jason, and in his right hand, raised like a trophy, Freddy Krueger's head. The remake. The story begins just like at the very start of the franchise, with a group of young people exploring the woods around Crystal Lake. They have no idea they're invading the territory of someone who never left that place. Someone who grew up there, alone, watching and killing. Jason Voorhees is not the spirit of a drowned child, and he's not immortal. Here, he's a human hunter. Stealthy, fast, trained by survival. He knows every inch of the forest and attacks like a predator. Before the mask, we only see quick flashes of his face in the shadows. Damaged skin, visible deformities, a drooping eye. During a fight, his burlap sack is ripped off, and we get a glimpse of his face in the dark. Damaged skin, visible deformities, a drooping eye. As usual, he claims another victim. Exposed and vulnerable, Jason looks for something to cover his face again, and then finds a hockey mask in the attic. In that moment, the hunter gains his now iconic identity. That was the entire evolution of Jason Voorhees' face. Now tell me, which version is your favorite, and which one do you think is the ugliest? If you want to dive deeper into Jason's full story, click on the screen and watch the video The Evolution of Jason Voorhees. I'll see you there.